Who's ready to win the day in sports? I know you are. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com, Monday through Friday, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Justin Fensterman, and let's break everything down from a fantasy sports perspective. What is going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. My name is Justin Fensterman, and welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily here on the Elite Plus Network, powered by that good old FG, FantasyGuru.com. We've made it to this point in the fantasy football season. We are right now mid-NBA, mid-hockey, and we got a whole bunch of content coming out hot. FantasyGuru.com. It's where you find my work at Fensty Sports, Fensty Sports on X and Instagram, and in our Fantasy Guru Discord channels at Fensty, again, Fensty. Before I bring up the plan of attack for today's Fantasy Sports Daily, as you know, Ray Flowers takes on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Then you get your Midweek Madness edition with your buddy Fensty over here. I'm going to split the show, as I always do, between NBA and NFL, but I'm going to reverse it a little bit this time around, and I'm going to talk football first because I know how important this time is. Your seasons are on the line. This is where you get in your own head. The tinkering happening right and left. Yes, we've got injuries that we're still waiting on for the remainder of the week. Yes, we have no buys. Yes, we may have a 44-year-old quarterback starting for those Indianapolis Colts and Phillip Rivers for actually week 15. We'll have to wait and see, though. So a lot of questions going in to week 15, and we've got you covered at FantasyGuru.com. Jeff Manz's rankings are out. They're at the site right now. And by the way, as you know, this stream is our reach out to you to join the Elite Mafia. And if you want to join the Elite Mafia, we got a great deal going right now, slashing prices all over the place here, including our all-in NFL plan that you see right here for under $65. That's right now down from $90 to $65. The rest of our season-long content, DFS, betting, and for the playoffs too. You go all in with Fantasy Guru. We are here for you. Even during the playoff weeks, it's just another day at the office. There's no difference there. We still have that content rolling. Some of you, like I am in all but one league, are sitting there on the sidelines while some of your best friends and some of your coworkers are in, or at least getting ready for the fantasy football playoffs. You can be in on the winning too. You absolutely can be. You can join the Elite Mafia. You get everything we have access to, all of our live streams. We have DFS live streams. I'm saying, you get our DFS too. Well, what do we have to offer you? A boatload of content headlined by Jeff Manz's cash game breakdown piece, which also includes a lot of GPP content, streams along the way, and then noon Eastern, you even get a stream right here at FantasyGuru.com from Armando Marsal and Chris Rose. Generally, they talk about the DFS slate. So if your season is over for season-long leagues, it stinks. It's frustrating. Trust me, I get it. I have a team where Lamar Jackson and Drake London, that old fiasco with both of them, Drake London's health, Lamar kind of sucking from a fantasy standpoint, and then all of a sudden last week, better, bounce back, but should have been even better, touchdown BS style, wiped off the board with Likely, so could have been even better for him. But I say that because this is why you start your studs. I can't even begin to imagine how many Justin Jefferson questions we are going to get in Discord. Well, Fensty, he sucked for this long. No. Like they said in the movie Titanic back in the day, I'm not trivializing anything that happened there, but still they said in the movie, a captain goes down with his ship. We're going down with our first round pick here with Justin Jefferson. Because you could have said the same thing about Lamar Jackson. I mean, I saw those questions. People asking Lamar versus who. What do you draft these guys for? To come through in a big way. And yes, you have to read between the lines a little bit. I understand that. I get the paranoia. I get that you're not wanting to sit there with maybe your season on the line if you're in playoff clinching mode, or if you're in the first round of your fantasy football playoffs. Do you really want to think about 3 or 4 points of Justin Jefferson? Let me tell you this, especially in this matchup against Dallas here, and also seeing McCarthy a little bit better, like we like to see in these situations, threw a few touchdowns last week. I'm going to say this. If you ask me about Justin Jefferson, the answer is going to be Justin Jefferson. You're not going to like that. I'm not. There's one thing with playing the matchups when you're in a streaming situation. It's another, though, with your season on the line, even with him producing single digits, we're still going in on him. A lot of people, I'm sure, were worried a little bit about Saquon Barkley. But that's why you start these guys. Would you rather have them in your lineup and go, okay, well, you know what? You spent on this guy. You did not trade this player. You stuck with this player. Let's see if he has a breakthrough performance against a team in which there could be a hell of a lot of offense for. Or we going to play a receiver that, yeah, maybe we can rely on if we have from our bench. Maybe we've seen them get targeted 6 to 8 times over the last few weeks. Maybe we've seen them get into the end zone in 2 of their last 3. But for me, I don't want to be that person that has Justin Jefferson on his bench when, let's just say, against Dallas, he's able to break through and put up a 15-plus spot, which I would take at that point. At that point, you take it. So be careful when playing the matchups. And if you want to do that, go for it. You want to be a Cowboy and do Cowboy stuff like that, go for it. Read the rankings, though. Those rankings aren't just there. They're not just there to get the job done. You can tell because Jeff has to do in his rankings, you know what he has to do? He kind of keeps away the pretty questionable people. He can easily rank them. No, he keeps them, meaning he has to go back in there and recalibrate every piece of injury news that we get. And by the way, every Friday, I put out the injury report at fantasyguru.com, which I'm updating throughout the weekend for the same reason. We want to keep you all updated. We want to make sure that you're ready to go. You've made it this far. And yeah, the old cliche, we didn't get this far just to get this far. You're damn right. I want everybody to win, but I don't want everybody getting in their own heads. Now, next week, you want to come after me. It's, Fensty said Jefferson. Gladly, bring it on. I don't care. I don't care. I have Lamar Jaxson on the team. You think I was going to bench Lamar Jackson after single-digit performances? No, I wasn't doing that. And when I thought that maybe, was he going to be healthy enough? Yeah, I picked up a backup. And yeah, my backup did pretty much on par with Lamar. But it's not always going to be that way. In that regard, I started Lamar Jackson. It wasn't even a thought in my mind. If he was playing, I was starting him. Wasn't sure about that until Friday, or maybe Thursday. We kind of started to get the tea leaves on it. But Friday, boom. I still had that second quarterback just in case some kind of crazy crap happened, because fantasy football, we all know, is crazy Saturday downgrades. Let's just say he hasn't been healthy. He wakes up, he's not feeling healthy all of a sudden, not moving right. That wasn't going to be me. Not me. I'm not being that person, and I am not doing that. And that's why I know a lot of you are going to hate me saying this, but this is why you drafted Justin Jefferson. You drafted him for these moments. And let's check out some of your questions, too. It's great to see all of you, by the way. Number 1, Manny. I'm glad Manny brought this up. What's your take on teams that are out of the playoffs making claims on the waiver wire? I think it's stupid. That's what I think. And yet, by the way, let me pause that and say, if your league has a prize for the consolation bracket, you have to leave waivers on. You can't just turn off waivers. But why does your league have a consolation prize? It shouldn't. It shouldn't at all. For reasons like that Manny brings up. Because what I do in my league is that as soon, and I did this as soon, not Monday, because you just never know, as soon as I refreshed Tuesday and it changed on the site, I immediately went to my commissioner tools. Everybody in my league knows I do this. Playoff teams, they get to continue to add and drop playoff players. Non-playoff teams, and I get people who complain to me about it every year. They forget that I do, and they're like, Fensty, that's kind of BS. I want to play through the rest. Dude, your season is over at that point, okay? Let the people in the playoffs have full access to waivers. And I'm glad you brought this up, because every year, even in my league, which has been going on for about 15 years, a lot of veteran players in my league, they still ask me because they just want to play. I let everybody set their lineup still. That's fine. But why should you be adding players if there's nothing to play for? Oh, it adds an element. Get out of here. Come on. You can sell me more on playing in week 18 before you can on me leaving waivers on to those teams that have nothing to play for. If there's something to play for, disregard everything I just said. If there's something to play for, because then you have to. Now, I'll say this. Here's a prize while we're talking about league prizes that I don't like. A lot of leagues give third place a payout. I don't even like leaving waivers on for that team that's playing for the third place prize. My league doesn't have that. But if it did, I would have to leave waivers on. But at the end of the day, those waivers, to me, should impact the teams that are in the championship when that time comes. But if I have a rule where I'm paying out third place, then yes, even the teams that lose in the semifinals, they get access to waivers. Sorry, it sucks if they have a bigger budget, or for those that still make it like it's 2003, playing in a league with waiver priority. I laugh when I say that because I've got one league, my family league. My cousin sometimes watches it, so I'm going to bust his chops a little bit. We do play with waiver priority, and it's so weird because every week for like the first 3 or 4 weeks, I'm like thinking like there's a problem with ESPN. Where's the work? And I put my budget in. Nope, it's waiver priority. But you can have someone that's sitting on that number one claim all year long, and now they've been bounced out of the playoffs, or rather been bounced out of getting to compete for the championship, but they could still, for the little dinky third place prize, they can still have access to waivers. So somebody who's actually fighting for the championship might not get that prioritized player that they need to compete for the championship. So that's the long answer. I don't like that. I will argue against anyone. Again, it's relative to your league. If your league has payouts or prizes, or I don't know, next year's draft order on the line, then yes, you have to keep the waivers on. My league rewards the following. And this is a good time to talk about this too, because we can always prepare for next year. And even in my leagues, I'm thinking of making a change because waiver wire being too thin. I have a 3 wide receiver, 2 flex starting league, and 12-teamer, and there's really not a waiver wire pool. There's a little one, so I'm thinking of getting rid of a bench spot. But the point is, it's always a good time to talk about next year. So here's what I do in my league. I reward, obviously, the champion, second place, and then I give the regular season champ a big-time payout too. I am a firm believer that if you play in a league where there's a playoff format, especially head-to-head, which I love, I feel like the team that won the regular season should be able to get a prize for that. I know they don't do it in real leagues, but you know what? You can't replicate every little thing. There are certain things you can't. And for me, that's why I like rewarding the regular season champ. I also like rewarding the points champ too. For those that are into points being part of the standings, I'm into that as well. My league, we haven't gotten there yet, but I do reward the points champ too. And I give a high score payout, high score of the week payout every single week. The final 3 weeks are a double payout, a double bonus. And the reason I do that, and analysts, they've made fun of me for years, but then when they think about it, they don't want to admit it to me, but they realize that what I'm doing makes sense. It incentivizes players in my league that are already out of it to still set their lineups. Let's just say they have a great week, and the final few weeks, all of a sudden their team is coming on strong, but because of the damage done earlier in the year, they can't make the playoffs. At least they can win back some of their entry fee. So it's something there. And those 3 weeks, by the way, in my league, you get over, if you win those 3 weeks, high score of the week, those 3 weeks, you get over half your entry fee back. Imagine that. So it incentivizes others in your league to play. And yes, as a commissioner, you got to do a little bit of policing with it. And you also have to make sure everybody is setting your lineup. It's forbidden in our league to touch the wire. Yes, absolutely. Again, unless your league has a third place prize or consolation prizes or draft order, if something's on the line for those that didn't make the playoffs, you can make a rule, I guess, to still eliminate waivers from those teams, and those teams have to get the best of what's left, but still you're leaving the player pool open to them. That's why I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I just think it's bad. So here's what I'm going to do here as you see. And again, you could sign up right now, rest of the season and the playoffs, DFS betting season long. Boom, right there. All in NFL, $64.99. Let's get to the rest of what's going on here, because I'm going to talk about some of these top totals as we're seeing a few of these games in the 50s. And then, as you see, I'm looking at DFS already for week 15. Going to go over some of these matchups and some of what I like. And then I see some of you with NBA props that you're looking at. I'll take any of your NBA questions too. I'll switch it over to NBA here in just a little bit. Man, that waiver talk just fired me up right there. So a few pieces of news very quickly. Those that have been hanging in there regarding Trey Benson, done for the year. We were all waiting on the window whether or not it was going to close or if he was going to be activated. Everything I saw right before we went live here is Benson is not going to be activated. So that means that his season is officially over. So remember that. Other things going into the Thursday game too to remember when it comes to guys like Cade Otton, he's going to be out, but whatever. On the other side, though, Drake London's still not practicing. So that's just been a situation. It took me down in the league because that's how amazing Drake London was this year and is as a receiver. And it stinks, but that's not looking good at all once again going into that game. But checking out the main slate here, I wrote a few notes here that I'm going to talk about. And one of them being in the Ravens-Bengals game, where I'm expecting a little bit of a different game. I'm expecting a little bit more production there. A few players that I like going into that game for DFS when looking at the main slate. I'm going to mention some cheapies, but I'm also going to mention some plays that I like here. I mean, let's not forget that now T. Higgins is in the concussion protocol. So at this point, you got to think it's very, very unlikely, not for sure, but very unlikely that he's going to be able to play. Jamar Chase had 7 for 110 in that matchup a few weeks ago. Zay Flowers didn't do anything, but he still was targeted 7 times if you wanted to go that direction. But the area that I'm very focused on, if I'm going to go with one of the two quarterbacks here, Lamar Jackson versus Joe Burrow. Lamar Jackson looked very different in the second half than we've seen the previous few weeks. All of a sudden in the second half, anybody who had Lamar Jackson with their seasons on the line were watching the game like I was thinking in the first half, wow, this guy is legitimately going to have another 6 to 8 point fantasy weeks. Not 6 to 18, 6 to 8 freaking points, and that's it. So now let's talk about Cincinnati. 5th most passing yards given up over the last month. Lamar Jackson looking a little bit better. The matchup, I know, like last time, wasn't as easy, but still, Lamar Jackson. If I'm going Jackson versus Burrow here, right now going Jackson, but the ownership will likely be a little bit down. Once we get that news about Higgins, the ownership will be down. But let me tell you who I'm a little bit more interested in, and that's Chase Brown. Because I think one of those things, and this is a little bit of a correlation here. No T. Higgins, there's a little bit of a target share opened up. Chase Brown caught 7 balls last game a few weeks ago against Baltimore. And that's a player who, by the way, there was a midway point in the season where it was a big-time lull. And especially after Joe Burrow went down initially, it was, okay, well, what does this mean for Chase Brown? Chase Brown has been thriving, though. He's been getting it done, getting some of that volume, getting it done in the air, too, with no Higgins. I feel like we can trust it a little bit more. I don't love trusting running backs that don't do diddly poo on the ground, but catch a bunch of balls. I don't like to trust that normally unless the target share is that high. But with the combination we could get here, I think that not only Chase Brown, but I think Derrick Henry is also somebody that we can look at too. A lot of people are going to be looking at Mark Andrews, and I wish the targets were a little bit more, but we see the Bengals get crushed by tight ends week after week. So with Mark Andrews, very hard to trust. Likely is out there, that whole controversial touchdown, right? You don't know who's going to get it. Hell, I had it last week too, and we were seeing, I know Dalton Kincaid was just coming back and it was snowing. He was still playing though. No limitations going in. I know the conditions not exactly ideal for someone that's just coming back from a leg injury, but at the same time, we saw both Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid get thrown to plenty, and there was nothing that Cincinnati was really able to do about it. So here, the big question is with Lamar, and I was just talking about this with Derrick Henry too, who I like, who scored against them. Is Mark Andrews going to be targeted enough, knowing that this Cincinnati team has a very difficult time guarding tight ends? But what is the ceiling looking like? We've not seen this guy. We've seen him get targeted more than 5 times once since their bye. And a lot of people are going to go and look at that, look at the matchup, and be like, this is a way to bounce back. I don't think this is a spot where people are just going to be like looking at pricing and avoid. I think they're going to see that now we're at the point where Mark Andrews on DraftKings is cheaper than Harold Fannin, sub 4K. A lot of people are going to be in on that. A lot of people. Now, look, he didn't get into the end zone, but he's still, that one game where he was targeted 6 times was that game against Cincinnati. But it's not just him. That's the big thing here. And so I can't even begin to imagine 20%, maybe more, a sub 4K tight end. And yeah, the matchup is ideal. We saw him get targeted. We can absolutely do that again. Wasn't working out for Zay Flowers a few weeks ago in that matchup. I can't imagine Cincinnati doing too much differently there. But while we haven't seen Mark Andrews do too much over the last number of weeks outside, really not doing too much over the last few weeks, still, this is an opportunity for him. It's a very cheap play, but you're going to be eating some ownership there because, again, attacking Cincinnati is just too easy, and you can almost keep going. And now, at this point in the season, everybody knows which teams to attack for certain positions. Beginning of the year, if you get ahead of the trend, maybe you get lucky on the ownership front, but that's where we're looking when it comes to Mark Andrews. So I wish it was more targets. I wish Likely wasn't there, but I think we can still trust it. But is there an unbelievable ceiling attached to it? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. By the way, going back to the conversation that we had earlier about keeping your studs and starting your studs in your lineup, it wasn't with Lamar Jackson. That's why you start Lamar Jackson. It should have been a better day. That touchdown being taken off the board, just unbelievable to me. I wasn't listening to the audio of the broadcast to hear the justification. I read a bunch of stuff, and I'm still rolling my eyes. I'm still confused as hell, but it should have been better. But imagine keeping that on your bench. Imagine. You don't want that. That's why I'm keeping Jefferson in there too. I don't have any of Jefferson, but Lamar I have, and that was my answer there. Browns, Bears, low total, sub 40. Browns, we know about their defense, but the problem is we don't know who we can trust on this Bears team anymore. We really don't. It's unbelievable, man. It's totally unbelievable. DJ Moore, hell happened to this guy. Odunze goes out, and then it's like, okay, 1 week it's Burden, 1 week it's Loveland. You can't create a map on how to figure this out. And not only that, when it comes to the pass catchers too, but what about the rushing attack? Because you're seeing Swift and Monangai get similar target volume. Similar carrying volume at this point. And if you look at how much they're on the field, it's also pretty close. Swift tends to be on the field a bit more, but we've seen Monangai still get work out of this. The last few weeks, this is why it's very hard to trust, because we don't know who's getting in the end zone anymore. The last few weeks, essentially, it was the last couple of weeks, let's say 22 Monangai, 18 Swift. Last week, 14 Monangai, 13 Swift. The Chicago Bears have become so confusing to figure out who to trust. Absolutely confusing. We can even look at the target mix here, which Caleb Williams will throw to his targets a little bit, but it's split pretty evenly. We saw Olamide Zaccheaus getting into the end zone. The big thing is we can look at Luther Burden, but the target volume is not high to the point where it's like, this is the guy. With Odunze being week to week, this is your guy right here. We've seen an uptick. Last 4 weeks, 5+ targets. We've seen that uptick. But at the same time, you've got Loveland getting targeted around the same as him. And for me, this is just a situation where I'm staying away from. And we saw Shedeur Sanders, by the way, have some very nice throws. Not going to be easy taking on the Bears, I'll tell you that much. But we saw Shedeur Sanders make a few nice plays. Now, we can look, there are a couple of options we can look at there as maybes, nothing that I'm truly head over heels about at this point, because as I'm looking to see if there's any other update, because we haven't seen it yet, we're waiting to find out whether or not he's going to be practicing. But look, if David Njoku doesn't play, then maybe for those that need a little bit of a cheapie, and especially for those in season-long leagues too, that might need, let's say, a flex. Let's say your team is completely busted at this point, and you're looking for someone that at least you know there's a little bit of a connection there. Well, I feel like we can chase the targets because once we hit that 6-target mark, which is where Harold Fannin has been over the last bunch of weeks, 6+ outside of a week here and there, but coming off the 11-target week he had where he went 8 for 114, I feel like that's a spot where we can trust just a little bit. Jerry Jeudy, I mean, at this point, another one made a very nice play, but if you're going to trust a singular person, we all know Judkin's going to get some of that, going to get a lot of that volume. Is he going to be able to get into the end zone? That's going to be tough to figure out. I think Fannin, as long as Njoku is out, I think Fannin, another cheaper tight end who's going to all of a sudden get looks unless David Njoku plays. But Fannin last week, 8 for 114. That's an area maybe of comfortability, and it's not like he's gotten 3, 2 targets. We've seen this guy get 5+, 6+, and if you need a streamer, there you go. And if you need another cheapie, there you go for DFS too. But I'm not locking him in just yet. Talking about this, a little preview. Let's not forget it is Wednesday. This is where the next matchup here, this is where I kind of want to be with stuff. And that is the Jaguars and the Jets, because I want to attack the New York Jets full force with this team. And this is, you're telling me, oh, where am I looking to stack? This is probably it right here. Lawrence, Etienne, Etienne will be able to run on the Jets. It's not as easy throwing on the Jets, but I'll say this is where I put some trust in the Jaguars here, and I put a little bit of trust into Trevor Lawrence, because I'm sitting there every single week on Elite Sports Game Time, which you can check out on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, me and Russell Clay, my buddy from the good old FG, fantasyguru.com, talking about everything we have going on the site, talking about all the football action going on Sundays, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern on Channel 87. And we were clowning Trevor Lawrence for a good portion of the year. But now, all of a sudden, here we go. The last few weeks here is throwing multiple touchdown passes, over 200 yards consistently, as we've seen. But last couple of weeks, no interceptions, playing better football and playing a mess of a New York Jets team. And I like this for the Jacksonville Jaguars, especially Travis Etienne. I mean, for me, Travis Etienne, which, by the way, a lot of people, as I was listening to Jeff Banz's show, the Elite Sports Show, which is on Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, and I was listening, there were times where Jeff was saying how he got questions, a lot of questions regarding Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne, since the bye, has been a dynamo from a fantasy perspective. We've seen this guy in PPR produce 15+ in all but 1 week since the bye. Now he faces the Jets. He should be able to run all over the Jets. Am I looking at Breece Hall on the other side? No, I'm going in on Travis Etienne. Let's look at the running back pool for DFS for a second, shall we? And talk about price comparison here. Travis Etienne sits at $6,500. I'm seeing at least 10 players at position priced up more than him. I think that's a very fair price point. Probably even more like 12 that are priced above him on DraftKings. We know the volume's there, and the Jets have a especially the last month, very difficult time defending against the run. Just a very difficult time. We saw him just get in week 14 against the Colts, which I was very much watching that game because I wanted to see if this Jaguars team would be able to hang with them. And they did more than that. Yes, Daniel Jones goes down. Totally understand that. But this Colts defense, who's been pretty good against the run here, I mean, we'll say this, Travis Etienne he was inefficient from a rushing standpoint. But we're seeing him get into the end zone a little bit. And I kind of thought that maybe he would be utilized a little bit more in the passing attack. He's not. So he hasn't been running well these last couple of weeks, essentially, but we know the volume will be there. This matchup, though, changes that. I look at what he did against Arizona, and now I'm thinking that's what we're going to see against the Jets. So that is why I'm liking Travis Etienne. And I'll probably be looking at, Myers since getting there. Talk about helping out an offensive infusion that they needed, especially where you have a hodgepodge of players where who's he going to? Who's Trevor Lawrence going to on a given day? Travis Hunter out of the way. Now Jakobi Meyers being in there. He has been solid. And that's a good way to stack, by the way, if you're looking to do that. Lawrence, Etienne, Myers. That immediately, and again, I normally start my process like this, looking, okay, stack potential. And for me, Jakobi Meyers, who's on DraftKings 5,600, the targets have been there 6+. That's what we've been seeing. And we've been seeing this guy get into the end zone as he has in each of his last 3 weeks. And the Jets don't scare me. Jets have won a couple of games. They don't scare me, though. The guys that were pretty scary or are pretty scary for the most part on the Jets have either been traded or are out. So that's really what you're looking at in that Jet game. Couple more games I'll go over of things that I'm just looking at for the weekend. I'm just in general from an interest standpoint, Bills, Patriots, very excited about it. Let's not forget that as good as the Patriots are, Josh Allen did throw for 253 and a couple of scores there, but Drake May did not throw any touchdowns against Buffalo. But this should be interesting how they cover Stephon Diggs, because if you remember from the last time these two teams battled, Diggs was not only making plays, but he was talking and talking and talking and talking. And it reminded me, because you can call a lot of things revenge narratives and all, but there are very few times where I see it as much as I did with Stephon Diggs. I think back to in basketball, for those that remember about 20 plus years ago, when the Knicks ended up trading Latrell Sprewell to the Minnesota Timberwolves. He came back to Madison Square Garden. Knicks owner Dolan sitting there, and he's just jawing at him, making plays and jawing at him the entire time. That is the true revenge narrative. What we saw here with Diggs, bunch of weeks ago, that's another one. So a lot of people are going to be interested in Stephon Diggs. But let's not forget that the Patriots, they come to play. So that's going to be interesting. I'm actually interested as well from the rushing attack and Henderson in that game. A 50.5 total in that one. Neither team have been over the last number of weeks giving up a lot to the tight end spot here. But really looking at this team overall, I'm looking at Henderson. I'm looking at Diggs. And then would I look at Josh Allen? I give him a look, but mainly I just mentioned guys like Trevor Lawrence. I'm trying to stick into a more value range right there. The Cardinals and the Texans, it's not going to be easy for Arizona. I don't care how much they throw this game. Houston is unforgiving, that defense. Very tough defense. And so for me, when it comes to this game, yeah, a lot of people are going to be watching, whether or not Marvin Harrison Jr. sits or not, because then it's Michael Wilson. I mean, at least can we trust the target volume? Yes, but this Houston team is no joke. And they're 9.5-point favorites for a reason. This total is not high. What we just saw against Kansas City, no fluke right there. So I am very nervous. You have to be in general regarding most of the cards options outside of McBride and Michael Wilson when Marvin Harrison's out. But this is a situation where I'm looking to maybe stay away from. If I'm looking for a few cheapies, a couple of guys, Woody Marks, another guy where you just never know, but Woody Marks is in a decent spot here. And then somebody else that I've actually been looking at in season, but utilizing in season long is from that standpoint, you can look even at a, Dalton Schultz at 4,100. And here's the thing with Schultz, though, the target volume is very up and down. So for me, I feel like from this game in general, we can look at Schultz, but for me, I'm mainly looking at from the Houston side, Woody Marks, and then, of course, you can look at the QB situation with Stroud and also Nico Collins. Another game where maybe in GPPs, you can look to stack a little bit there too. But from the Arizona side, like a lot of people I'm sure are going to feel, I'm probably staying away from that situation for the most part. Raiders and the Eagles, I've been looking at some numbers over the last month or so, and the Eagles been letting it up to running backs just a little bit. So Ashton Genty, who's cheap for DFS, obviously season long, you're keeping him in there. But Ashton Genty, not only have the Eagles have been allowing a lot of rushing yards, but also been allowing a lot of receiving yards too. And Ashton Genty can thrive in both. So that's an area where I'm going immediately. People see the Eagles and they're like, no, thank you. For me, to do it a little bit differently, going to go the other direction, and I am going to be looking at someone like Ashton Genty here. The Giants and the Commanders want to use some of those Giants options too, because I don't believe in Washington's defense. Can I see myself in maybe one of my lineups utilizing some kind of 1-2 punch with Dart and Wan'Dale Robinson, who is just a target machine? I could see myself doing that. We're waiting to see what the Commanders' injury situation is, but really, not a lot that you can really like from there, even if Daniels is out. So that's why from the Giants side of it, that's where I'm definitely looking at Wan'Dale Robinson there. The Colts and the Seahawks, I know that we're all excited that Phillip Rivers might actually start. But at the same time, this isn't the ideal start. In fact, this is probably one of the worst teams that he can start against because Seattle is going to be all over them. So with Seattle being a 13.5-point favorite for a reason, that defense crushes you, absolutely crushes you. So that's where you got to be careful with these Colts options. It's almost like with Riley Leonard at least being in motion and not having to shake the rust off, you almost wonder who would be the better quarterback if you have Colts options here against this unforgiving Seattle defense. And by the way, from the Seattle side, you're going to be able to throw on Indianapolis. Running's going to be tougher, but you're going to be able to throw. And that Seattle rushing attack is another one that's just beyond frustrating to figure out. So expect Sam Darnold and company and JSN to be eaten and to be busy. So there's going to be a lot of throwing there, and that's another one that I like. I'm seeing a question from Jay Main here. McBride is a must start, though, right? Yes, he is. Yes, he is. I know it's a tough matchup, but this is another guy who, for the most part, is just a target monster. And that, to me, even though will it be very tough, will Houston know they have to try to take it? Yes, they will. But at the same time, when it comes to Trey McBride, I can't fathom benching him. That's another one where all year long getting targeted a ton, and I don't think he's going to all of a sudden be down to 3 or 4. He stays in that 6 to 8 range even. I'm fine with that, and I think that's still a possible. But yes, I'm glad you asked that question because a lot of people are going to play the matchups. To me, in my season-long leagues, I am still starting Trey McBride. So to answer that question, I like questions like that, though. Outside of that, the 49ers are double-digit favorites against the Titans. Really, with that, I'm being careful with everything. It's pretty much McCaffrey, and that's where I'm looking there. And then beyond that, the only other places I'm looking are from the Panthers side of it too, going up against the Saints. They are road favorites. That one is a low total here, but McMillan in a very good situation here against the New Orleans Saints. Lions-Rams has a 55.5 point total. 55.5. Stafford Goff, I'm ready for that one. And you better be too, because on Elite Sports Game Time this Sunday, we're going to be covering all of that and more. It's going to be a great, great time. 4:25 start for that one. And so you got us from 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern. It'll be me and Russell Clay and a very big surprise. That's right. Elite Sports Game Time. Very big surprise. I'm calling it a surprise right now, but maybe I'll reveal it beforehand. You never know where, though. But big time surprise coming up this Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern, Elite Sports Game Time. And it's going to be groovy. It's going to be awesome right there. So a little bit of a DFS preview going into week 15. That's how I'm going to kind of handle football here moving forward. Just giving a few quick thoughts about matchups here. And now let's talk a little strategy when it comes to NBA, because beyond our NFL all-in package, you can also, for those that want to get involved in other sports here, you go all in and join and become an MVP and sign up for our MVP plan that we have. And that includes everything we have to offer from the NBA side of it, which you know I head up. NHL, PGA, racing, MMA. You get everything we have to offer on the site with this MVP package, except for football and baseball. All the other sports got a lot of things going on with those other sports. Soccer betting too, part of that. Ani Streeter, my guy, doing a lot of soccer bets there. Everything from MMA, T-Rod, Tyler Rodriguez is also actually doing from fantasyguru.com. Not only the MMA, but also hockey, big time hockey better too, because I do a lot from the basketball side. I do a lot of props. And I know some of you are asking a little bit more about over-unders and all that, which I've shown you the tools. You go to the data section at the site, fantasyguru.com, data, NBA, basketball, and you will see all the tools that we have to offer from the DFS side. We have a props tool as well that gives projections. And we have an over-unders tool, which we're looking with our projections at a 4% edge. So a 4% difference on what our projected total of the game is going to be versus the total the books are offering. And if we have that 4% edge either way, we know to bet over under. I'll say this, in doing my own testing, I give it at least a 5% edge. So I even go up to 5. If there's an outlier, that's what makes it easy for me to figure out by using our NBA tools. But we got DFS, we've got betting. Tonight, though, no watch along Wednesday, because I always forget about this random December week when it comes to the NBA Cup, where we have a few light slates. Monday was 3, Tuesday was 2, Wednesday 2. Yesterday started at 6 p.m. Eastern. Crazy. Today starts at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. I'll be in Discord from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern, helping everybody build. I'll also put my plays there. I'll give a bunch of plays and also my core 4, which we always give when giving our DFS content at the site. But this MVP plan that we have, the MVP pass plan that you see right at the bottom of the document, $60 for the month. Give it a try. January, make January your month. Give it a try for $60. Sign up for the season for $199.99 for the year. So try it out for $60. It's not just basketball, but it's hockey, it's racing, it's soccer, it's everything else we have to offer with the exception of football and baseball. Let's talk a little bit about this slate tonight here, because we've got an interesting 2-gamer here with the Spurs with no Victor Wembanyama. Their defense has plummeted. However, they have Stephon Castle back into the mix. So that's going to be something of interest there. Phoenix OKC, we're all waiting on Devin Booker news because we saw these two teams have a close game before. Phoenix plays very underrated defense and they can slow teams down, which they've done a good job of, they're not coming close to winning that game if Devin Booker's not playing. Sucks for our slate. Luckily, the later game, though, so we can make a little pivot movement. But if Devin Booker plays tonight, I am likely to attack the Thunder using everyone. If Devin Booker does not play tonight, I would rather use Jalen Williams, who we're starting to see get into rhythm, and much cheaper than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander versus Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Now, here's the interesting thing. From a GPP standpoint, a lot of people are going to be thinking that, oh, well, they're just going to go for the cheaper option, right? Because SGA is that damn good that SGA has proven that he can volume produce. Are the optics ideal for him to volume produce in this game with no Devin Booker? Not at all. Not to me at all. So I am interested in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but I'm a lot more interested if Devin Booker plays, because then we can mess with the bigger pieces here. If not, if let's say Devin Booker is out, here are a couple of guys I'm all in on tonight from the Phoenix side. Mark Williams, I'm in on him. Because at least with, and again, slow-moving game, but no Isaiah Hartenstein. So that takes some of the height away from Oklahoma City. Somebody else that I'm kind of into, Royce O'Neal. Doesn't have a high ceiling, but for the cheap price point that he is, we know he'll get the minutes, and we know that he'll put up stats. A little bit in each category. That's what he does. But those two right there become a lot more interesting from the Phoenix side if Booker doesn't play. Booker plays, then yeah, we can look. I'm down to look at Devin Booker. But again, he's going to have Jalen Williams and SGA on him a lot, and that is not going to be fun. But I'd rather look there. But we'll have to see if he ends up playing. And of course, we also have to see if there's any kind of limitation attached to his minutes. So right now, as it stands, I'm assuming he's not playing. So from that mindset, and we've been told that he could return. He's not playing. Mark Williams, Royce O'Neal, Jalen Williams. He plays, then it's a decision, SGA versus Devin Booker. At that point, I probably go with SGA. And then I look at, from the Phoenix side, Mark Williams still, who I think can still have a big game, even if the Suns are getting crushed, let's just say. Then you look at the other game. It's another one where the pace isn't going to be quick. Normally what I like to do is I love looking at pace of play for these matchups to start to determine where we're going to eat as DFS players. Tonight with this two-gamer, though, you're going to have some slow-moving basketball. So no Wembanyama there, someone who I like, who's actually done a good job, and I've clowned this guy so much, but he's done his job. He's understood. He's kept his mouth shut. He's not going to be Mr. Score, but he can still get himself 5 to 7 shots in a game, but he can grab you a hell of a lot of rebounds here with no Wemby, and that's DeAndre Ayton. In this matchup, I'd much rather look to trust here because I think Castle is going to be on Luka Doncic, and both of them are very good defenders. So I think that tonight's the night, especially with where we're at in the cup. I think that we can look at LeBron. We're starting to see him get more aggressive in the post. Does he have the sciatica? Is it impacting him as much as it is? He has it still, but he's moving better. Watching him, I'm seeing him move better. I've been scared to death to suggest him because he hasn't been rebounding. And even the scoring, it's been a lot of just passing. We're starting to see more of that, though. And I like that a lot going up against the Spurs team that doesn't have Wembanyama. Because no disrespect to Luke Cornett, Jeremy Sohan, Keldon Johnson, Champagnie and company, but LeBron can still drive, and they're going to have a very difficult time stopping LeBron James tonight. Other players I'm liking right now in that matchup from the Spurs side of it, I'm looking at value because here's the deal. It's going to be interesting with who Luka's on because for me, I want to make sure Stephon Castle is going to be getting the minutes. I think he will, but he's going to be on Luka. Luka, though, to me, is going to be on De'Aaron Fox. He's got to keep De'Aaron Fox from scoring. Scares me away like crazy from De'Aaron Fox. Rather go Castle there, but I'm more interested in two value options from San Antonio. Number one being Keldon Johnson, very efficient when he's on the floor. He takes shots. People were wondering with me because I kept relying on him, whether or not Dylan Harper being back impacts that. I think we're good still in this matchup. And then Julian Champagnie is somebody else who we've seen all of a sudden score. Let's just say the Lakers completely dominate the Spurs, which is a possibility because the Lakers have been playing really good basketball, just very good basketball. Yes, they have Luka, LeBron, Austin Reeves. I understand that. Ayton's been doing his thing, but they don't really, when it comes to their depth, not a lot of impressiveness when it comes to their depth from a production standpoint. So that's why I'm very intrigued by how well the Lakers are playing. They've had guys in and out. Luka's been in and out. LeBron's been in and out. Austin Reeves has kept his role. But ultimately, for me, I am probably looking from the Spurs side at Champagnie and Keldon Johnson on the cheap. Because without Wembanyama, this team is just very exposed in the inside. I haven't wanted to attack the Spurs. They play slow. And their defensive rating was good prior to Wembanyama getting injured. So because of that, I've been avoiding them. But then I started to see teams beat them a little bit and this all started, I mentioned this a few weeks ago with my research with the Minnesota Timberwolves, who I think are a very good team, but their defense had been lacking. The Spurs defense, and with Castle back in there, the perimeter is going to be covered a little bit more. But no Wemby, the inside is going to be open for business all day long. And I worry about that from San Antonio. I'm worried that both of these games can be blowouts, especially if Booker doesn't play on the other side. So to sum it all up here, I'm in on LeBron James tonight. Luka, more of a GPP mindset there. It was 2 games. He's going to get the ownership. But remember, Stephon Castle is a very, very good defender. And if there's any way possible that Luka's ceiling were to get limited, this would be one of the very few matchups that I worry. Also, LeBron and Reeves being in there too, it does make me wonder. And the Spurs are still running at a slow pace, as are the Lakers. So it just, the environment's not great. And especially if they're going to be up, then Luka's going to get pulled. So for me, I'd rather attack it from a cheaper standpoint. One, LeBron James. And yes, I know with the cup and everything, it's going to incentivize those starters there. But at the end of the day, these players know, especially this Lakers team, they can't lose Luka. They can't lose LeBron. They will not go anywhere if either one of them are out for the remainder of the season due to injury. So from the other game, I'm looking at Mark Williams for sure, Jalen Williams for sure. If Booker plays, then I'm on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I'm also on Royce O'Neal there too. So that's kind of where I'm looking when it comes to both of these games here. Oklahoma City is the best defensive team in basketball. Very hard team to get to. They have been. Last year was a little bit easier. You can run on them a little bit. This year, it's been the opposite, man. They've been playing a lot slower. We started to see it a little bit towards the end of the year. Last year, what was interesting about them is, okay, tough matchup, but they play quickly. So still, from a pace standpoint and from a possession standpoint, the ceilings on the opposition would still be lifted. This year, though, it's tough because the game environments with them are horrible. Maybe the most horrible game environment when they're involved in the entire NBA. As you see here, because I haven't been able to get to it, a few strategies regarding betting on assists. So with betting on assists, I look at pace there. I look at potentials. Pace and potentials are huge. Do I look at how many assists per game that I see teams giving up? I do, but I also look at points and field goal percentage to see if it aligns. Opponent field goal percentage, let's just say. Let's say I see a team that allows a team to shoot, top 5 for opponent percentage, the highest, let's say, for opponent percentage. And I'm seeing them rank in the bottom 12 or in the top 12 in most assists allowed to opponents. That's a direct correlation. That's when I'll bet an assist prop. Got a few questions regarding Jalen Brunson last night. And it's been a couple of cold days for me. I know that. less games. I have a theory, less games, the lines get a little bit tighter. What ends up happening with basketball prop betting, after really doing this for the last number of years, I'm kind of learning this more and more. Somehow, some way, these prop lines get sharper in December. And then once football's kind of out of the way, then these books want to hook you in. Then the lines become a little bit more forgiving. But that mid-December to mid-January, maybe it's just me. Maybe I don't like winter. I can't stand snow. I really don't like snow for a lot of reasons, because then I have to shovel the ice there. I'm not the most graceful ballerina out there. I trip and fall. I don't want to do that. I like the heat better. I like the warmth. But I always find it that the prop lines, if there's a way that they can become even more exact, it's during that time. So, yeah, I'm not saying that as an excuse. Everything I chase, you see my work. I feel like I have a good direct line to an over, but that's the way it happens sometimes, though. I got a question before from Greg regarding Keldon Johnson over 10.5 points in that Lakers game. I can see that happening. That I can see happening because they're going to need him off the bench, because with everybody kind of starting and that starting lineup really loaded, Keldon Johnson coming off the bench will be huge. And the Spurs are going to need their secondary scorers like Johnson and even Champagnie too. By the way, Champagnie has been a scorer. So that's something to watch out for here. And let's say the Lakers go up big and they don't look back, you can start to see those guys get even more action in the second half. It's good that the Spurs, it's funny, if the Lakers had the kind of bench depth the Spurs had, I would understand why they are so good. But I got to give JJ Redick some credit here. Good coaching. He's done a good job. Oh, but he has LeBron and Luka. Well, has he really had them? Has he had a long time with them? Not really. Can they trust that LeBron will be at 100% all year? Very hard to, especially if he has sciatica. So for assists, that's where I look at. I look at the potential assists, and I try to look for double the potential assist average versus the prop. For instance, let's say De'Aaron Fox has an assist prop of 5.5. I'm just using this as an example. But I look up the potentials over the last 10 games, and I see that he's only averaged 8.5 potential assists per game over the last 5. I'm probably staying away from that, because that means most of the assists that Fox would have, pretty much all of them, the teammate would have to score and not miss the shots. Now, 5.5, and you tell me De'Aaron Fox, and I see that De'Aaron Fox potential assists is averaging 11.5, 12 potential assists per game. The pace is looking nice. Tonight's a bad example, but it's a pace-up spot where the Spurs benefit from the pace-up. More possessions that way. He's averaging nearly 12 potential assists per game, and it's at 5.5, the line. And you've seen him right around that average for real assists. That's where I look to bet assists. That's why you see a lot of rebound props right now, because I need a little bit of sample size before really diving into assists. Jalen Brunson, though, for a few of you that were asking me about Brunson, if Towns is out and Josh Hart is out, fine. If Karl Anthony Towns or Josh Hart is playing, meaning Towns is out but Hart is in, I worry about Jalen Brunson assists. His numbers have been just so up and down and all around. Very good offensive player. Even for DFS, spending up for him is not easy. You don't know how many assists he's going to get, and you're really relying on the scoring with him this year. That's the problem. That's why I've been shying away from his props, and I've been shying away from writing him up. Make sure you give me a follow on X and Instagram at Fensty Sports, FENSTY Sports. Ray Flowers will be back tomorrow with you. Same time, same place, right here on the Elite Plus Network. It's Fantasy Sports Daily. Make sure you catch Elite Sports with Jeff Mans and Ray Flowers today, 2 p.m. Eastern, getting you ready for the rest of Week 15. Good luck to everybody in the playoffs, in their fantasy playoffs, or those getting ready to clinch. Good luck to everyone who's going to be tackling the 2-game NBA slate. I'll be in Discord 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern answering questions. I'll have some bet skis up there on the site too at fantasyguru.com. No watch along Wednesday for tonight. We have just one game that'll be on until 10 p.m. Eastern. Then we have the other game of the 2-gamer. So no watch along Wednesday, but I'll still be in Discord putting plays in and lineup building with all of you. Good luck to everybody out there tomorrow. Same time, same place, same channel, noon Eastern. Fantasy Sports Daily on the Elite Plus Network, powered by fantasyguru.com.